can't see nobody stopping us. Yeah, we're unstoppable. Went through a whole lot of obstacles.
I want to give honor and glory to the Most High God and His only begotten Son, who the world calls Jesus Christ. So today I want to go into a few scriptures concerning one of the laws that affect our people drastically, dramatically, however you want to say it. And one of the laws that people try to brush off. So what we're going to start off with is first, as always, see who the Most High God gave the laws to, the punishment for breaking the laws. Then we're going to go into a story of a family of 7 brothers that died for the law, to keep the law. And lastly, we're going to go into Isaiah to see what will be the outcome if you get caught breaking the law. So let's go ahead and start right here in Amos 3 in chapter 1. Amos chapter 3 and verse 1. And it says, "Hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel." So as we know, our understanding is Israel is the 12 tribes. If you can see the chart behind me, not sure how perfect you can see it, but that's the listing of who is part of the 12 tribes. So let's continue. It says, "O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth." So the Most High God only knows the children of Israel. He knows no other family on the earth, no other nation. He doesn't know them. He doesn't respect them. He doesn't care about them. So it says, "You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities." So again, if you have kids, you tell your kids to do something, they don't listen. As a parent, you're going to punish them. So the same thing the Most High God is doing to us. He gave us laws, which start from Genesis to Deuteronomy. As you read through them, and you get the laws. There's laws for the land. There's laws, dietary laws, ceremonial laws, high holy days, all these different laws as you read through the Bible from Genesis to Deuteronomy that you will find. But as I said, today we're only going to go touch through one of the laws. So let's read Amos one more time from the top. Amos 3 in chapter verse 1, it says, "Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities." So let's jump to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. Deuteronomy 28 and 15. I'm going to start at verse 1. Let's see what happens if we obey his laws, or if we would have continued to obey his laws. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1. It says, "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth." So if we would have kept the laws, even to this day, we'd be on high. We'd be in charge of pretty much the world. We'd be running the government. We'd have nice cars, nice houses. We wouldn't have to work these long, stressful days. We wouldn't have to do any of these things if we would have kept the Most High God's laws. So let's jump into verse 15, see what happens since we don't keep his laws. It says, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So as we can see, if we don't follow his laws, his statutes, his commandments, that curse is going to fall upon us. From Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15, all the way to 68 are all the curses that we would live through. Not to say that every curse is going to affect one person. You might have a few that affect one person, a few that affect another person, but let's go ahead and grab this one real quick, just so we can see one of the curses. It says, "Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field." So when you think about it, anywhere in the country you go, any part of the world, who's the ones living in poverty? Who's living check to check? Who's, working 2 to 3 jobs and still living in a roach infested apartment? Rats crawling outside your alley, your building, you know, um, people strung out on drugs. Who are the people living in these types of areas? That's not a blessing. You don't go down to the rich folks' house and see, all these things that we living through. And it says, "And cursed shall thou be in the field." You think about it in the during the time of slavery, who was working the cotton fields, the tobacco fields? Think about it today. Who was down in California picking the vegetables, the fruits? You know what I mean? For like less than minimum wage. Who's doing that? These are curses, and these just two curses from verse 16 that we could just think and be like, whoa, you know, I know it's I see Black and Spanish people doing this type of stuff, living this way, but those are just two of the curses. We'll get into the curses maybe another day. But my main point on this was verse 15. It says, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." So we getting cursed for not obeying the laws, and we disobey God's laws and commandments, his statutes and commandments willingly. Because why is it so hard to put certain things away? So let's go to one of the laws. Let's go to one of the laws that he gave us. The main law, that the reason of today's topic is this law right here. Let's jump to Leviticus 11 and 7. And this is going to touch a lot of people, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, no, that's not real." But if you believe, you believe. If you don't, he who has an ear, let him hear, as the scripture says. So we're going to start at Leviticus chapter 11, verse 7. So you read Leviticus 11. This is pretty much the dietary laws: what you can eat, what's clean to eat, what's unclean to eat. So we're going to go ahead and jump 11, verse 7. It says, "And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you." The swine, everybody know what a swine is. Pig, So it says, he is unclean to you. "Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you." So you can't even touch these animals. These animals were made to be the garbage disposer, the garbage, the trash man in back in the days. These animals came around, would eat whatever you threw out, whatever you didn't want to eat, whatever you didn't want in the house. You throw it out, the pig will come around and eat it. You put a dead human in front of a pig, he'll eat it. Put a pile of dog poop in front of a human, put a pile of poop in front of a pig, he'll eat it. These things eat anything. And let's continue, because it continues to go on. And says, these shall ye eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever hath fins and scales. In the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers, them shall ye eat. So these are the things in the waters that we're allowed to eat, things that we're not allowed to eat. So whatever has fins and scales, we're allowed to eat it. So if you think about it, what has fins and scales? Only fishes. Not all fishes. Catfish doesn't have, a shark doesn't have fins and scales, and dolphins don't have fins and scales. These are all considered fishes still, you know. And let's continue. It says, and all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. So anything that doesn't have fins and scales, it's a no. You can't eat it. So what are we talking about here? Things I used to love to eat, which is shrimp, lobster, oysters, crabs. I used to love these things. You know, with a nice little beer, some nice shrimp, that'd be the weekend, you know. But once I learned and came into this truth and understanding, I had to put all that stuff away. You know, I had to put all the seafood away. I had to put the swine away. I used to love the pork chops. You know, so this is one of the laws that we continue to break today. And if we, I didn't want to go into too much, but let's jump into. Well, we'll just leave that out for now. But so this is one of the main laws that we continue to break as a nation. This is the reason that all these curses are continuing to fall upon us. Jump back into Deuteronomy 28 real quick to see one of the curses that's happening now to our Northern Kingdom brothers, the Hispanic brothers and sisters, for disobeying this law. One of the curses, this is a curse from verse 19. It says, "Cursed shall thou be when thou comest in." So you think about all the Latinos that come into the country. They don't come on visas. They don't come on an airplane. They don't come on American Airlines with a visa, with a passport. They don't come that way. How do they come into the country? They come in illegally. There's a train in Mexico called La Bestia, the Beast. I've Google it. You see how our people get on top of this train. They're running while this train is moving to jump on the train to get over here. Some of them lose their arms, their legs. You know, some of them, depending on how far down they come, some of them don't even make. They run out of money before they get to Mexico, so they have to stay whatever country they ran out of money and try to find work. So that's one of the curses. It says, "Cursed shall thou be when thou comest in." And I when we're on the street teaching, giving this word out, it doesn't necessarily just mean that the curse is coming into the country. This curse is when you're trying to get a house, when you're trying to get an apartment. This you're trying to get a loan from a bank. These are curses when it says when thou comest in. You're getting cursed for whatever little thing you're trying to do. It's a curse. Continue the curse. It says, "Cursed shall thou be when thou goest out." How the Northern Kingdom brothers getting out of this country right now? Immigration roundups, running into construction sites, rounding everybody up. That's a curse. For disobeying God's laws, statutes, and commandments. And like I said, we're only touching on one law right now, and that's a dietary law. But I just gave two curses that we're living to this day. If our people put this stuff away, things may change for them for the better, But those are two curses. And let me go ahead and go to the main point that I wanted. So this is out of the book of the Maccabees. Not sure if you're familiar with the Apocrypha. A lot of Bibles do not have it now. This is a Bible from 1569. And as you can see, this one's a Spanish Bible. It has the book of the Maccabees in there. So it's not something that people are just, that we're just making up that, oh, You know, those the Catholic Church took these books out of the main Bible. So we're going into this book right now, the book of the Maccabees. We're going to see how a family of, I think it's seven brothers, how they died to keep the laws, and our people are dying not to keep the laws. So let's go ahead and jump into this. This is the book of Second Maccabees, chapter 7. So we might just read through this because I mean there's not much. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much, precept upon precept, because we're some of us are still learning. You know, like I said, there's other camps, other brothers out there. Just send a message. Hey, well, who's a good camp to listen to? I'll send it over to you. You know, but let's go into Maccabees, Second Maccabees, chapter 7, from the top. It says, and it came to pass also that seven brethren with their mothers were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips. So this king got seven brothers and told them, you guys have to eat this stuff, the swine, the pig. And he pretty much tortured them. And we're going to get into it. So just, listen up. So it says, but one of them that spake first said thus, what wouldest thou ask or learn of us? So he's like, what do you want from us? What do you want us to do? He says, we are ready to die rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. So he said, man, we're going to die not to eat this stuff, because this is a law that the Most High God required and commands us to do. So this guy said, I'm going to die not to eat this. I'm keeping the laws. And again, our people say, nah, pork chops? Yeah, let me get some. I'm ready to eat it. Not knowing that stuff is killing you. High blood pressure, diabetes, all this stuff that comes from it. Get worms in your body. Anyway, let's continue. It says, but one of them that spake first said thus, what wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. Then the king, being enraged, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot, which forthwith being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first, and to cut off the uttermost part of his body. The rest of his brethren and his mother looking on. So this guy said, I'm not eating that. Do what you want. So the king said, all right, get some frying pan, some oil, heat that stuff up. He's about to see what we're going to do to him. So they cut out his tongue first. And then it says, and they cut off the uttermost parts of his body. So then they started cutting him up. Just because he didn't want to eat pig, he could have easily said, yeah, let me taste it, king, because you want me to, because you're commanding me to. But what did he say? He said, no, the Most High God said, don't eat it. So in verse 5, it says, now when he was thus mammed in all his members, he commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire and to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying thus. So they cut him up, took out his tongue, getting ready to put him in the frying pan, fry him alive, because he's still talking, saying he's not eating it. Getting ready to get fried alive, but he's still, it says they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying thus. So his mother was there with the seven brothers, and he still said, nah, I'm not eating this. It says the Lord God looketh upon us, and in truth hath comfort in us, as Moses in his song, which witnessed to their faces, declared, saying, and he shall be comforted in his servants. So when the first was dead after this manner, they brought the second to make a mocking stock. So the first brother died. Now they're on the second brother. And when they pulled off his skin of his head with the hair, so they scalped him. cut the little bit of skin and peeled his hair back. It says, and when they had pulled off his skin of his head with the hair, they asked him, wilt thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body? So they're asking him too, all right, we skinned your head, we scalped you now. Are you going to eat it? You want to taste it? But he answered in his own language and said, no. His brother just died. Their mother's there witnessing all this stuff going on. His his head has just got scalped. And he's still saying no to eating pork. He's saying no while all this stuff is going on. And our people out here willingly going out to buy it because it's the cheapest meat on the market for some reason. I mean, that's obvious why it's the cheapest meat on the market. But let's continue. It says, wherefore he also received the next torment in order, as the former did. So the same thing. He got scalped, tongue got cut out. It says as the former did. And when he was at the last gasp, he said, thou like a fury. I'm sorry, it says, and when he was at the last gasp, he said, thou like a fury takest us out of this present life. But the King of the world shall rise us up, who have died for his laws, unto everlasting life. So he's saying, you're going to take us out, but we're dying for the king's laws, for God's laws. So he's going to bring us back anyways. It says, but the King of the world shall raise us up, who have died for. So, okay, I'm sorry. It says, but the King of the world shall raise us up, who have died for his laws. So if you die for God's laws, you die keeping his laws, he's going to raise you back up. Only because you say, oh, I go to church every Sunday and I pray every day, God saved me. No, that's not how it works. It says, who have died for his laws unto everlasting life. Verse 10, it says, after him was the third made a mocking stock. So now we're on the third brother. After him was the third made a mocking stock. And when he was required, he put out his tongue. And that right soon holding forth his hands manfully, and said courageously, these I had from heaven, and for his laws I despise them. So they're like, take out your tongue, put your hands out, we're about to cut them off. He's like, man, here, I already had these in heaven. I'm going to get them back anyway, so do what you want. So let's continue. It says, where was that? Okay. Verse 11, and it says, and said courageously, these I had from heaven, and for his laws I despise them, and from him I hope to receive them again. Insomuch that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage, for that he not. I'm sorry. Cut this part out. Verse 11, and said courageously, these I had from heaven, and for his laws I despise them, and from him I hope to receive them again. Insomuch that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage, for that he nothing regarded the pains. Now when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner. So we're on the fourth brother now. They killed four brothers already. Well, getting ready to kill the fourth brother, the same way they did the other ones. Keep in mind, the mother's still looking. They could easily say, yes, give me the pork. Everyone after the other could say, yes, give me the pork, I eat it. Verse 13, it says, now when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner. So when he was ready to die, he said thus, it is good, being put to death by men, to look for a hope from God to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. So these brothers already knew, dying for this law, that they were going to live again. They were going to be resurrected. So in this verse 15 it says, afterward they brought the fifth also and mangled him. We're down to five brothers now. The fifth brother is already being tortured. Then looked he unto the king and said, thou hast power over men. Thou art corruptible. Thou does what thou wilt. Yet think not that our nation is forsaken of God, for we suffer these things for ourselves. They're doing it for themselves to know that they're going to be in a better place, that they're obeying the law, statutes, and commandments. Having sinned against our God, therefore marvelous things are done unto us. But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against God, that thou shalt escape unpunished. But the mother was marvelous above all, and worthy of honorable memory. For when she saw her seven sons slain with the space of one day, she bare it with a good courage because of the hope that she had in the Lord. So the mom believed so much, she saw all her kids get tortured, slaughtered, fried, you know, cooked alive. But she had, she had hope in the Lord. All this happened in one day. It says, yeah, she exhorted every one of them in her own language, filled with courageous spirits, and stirring up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach. She said unto them, I cannot tell how ye came into my womb, for I neither gave you breath nor life, neither was it I that formed the members of every one of you. But doubtless the creator of the world, who formed the generation of the man and found out the beginning of all things, will also of his own mercy give you breath and life again, as ye now regard not your own selves for his laws' sake. So all this comes down to say they kept the laws. Even the mother said, all the stuff you're going through, you're going to be back on this earth again, just because you obeyed God's commandments. One of the commandments, which was not to eat the swine's flesh. So that's all I wanted from the Maccabees right now, the book of the Maccabees. So let's go into the last scripture over here in Isaiah. As we know, Isaiah is a prophet. He tells the things that are going to come to pass. So let's see, for those that are still unbelievers saying, nah, I can still eat it. I'll be fine. The Lord's going to forgive me. I can do what I want. Let's see what Isaiah says in the book of Isaiah. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 66. The book of Isaiah, chapter 66, verse 15. So we know that the Most High has not been back yet. He hasn't come back yet. So this is a prophecy. And this is Isaiah 66, verse 15. It says, for behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind. And as we know, he has not returned yet. So this is something that's coming in the near future. It says, for behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh. So a lot of people want to be getting burned up and chopped up. And the slain of the Lord shall be many. So that means he's not coming just to kill one or two people. He's coming to kill many nations. And it says, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree, in the midst, eating swine's flesh. And the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. So the Lord is saying when he comes back, you're eating any abominable things, swine's flesh, lobster, shrimp, crabs, any of these things, not obeying his laws, you're going to be consumed with everybody else, all the other nations that were not given the laws. So that'll be it for this one. Hope to see you guys on the next one. If you guys like this or understand it, a little simpler, want a little bit more information, just leave a comment. I'm not the best at it, but I'm trying to make it as simple as we can to have have us have people understand it. Like I said, there's other camps out there. You want to know another good camp that breaks down. If you're more advanced, and you want something broken down a little bit better, just type in the comment, yo, what's another camp? I don't mind sharing. Like I said, we planting the seed. If you want to learn, you want to grow. So until next time.